Yesterday really was a banner day for the American media, and my favorite part about this is about how they parrot military-industrial talking points. So this happened whenever Trump fired Mark Esper, formerly Secretary of Defense. Happened yesterday, okay? So it turns out that Mark Esper actually gave an exit interview to the Military Times because he knew he was going to get fired. And at the very bottom of this interview, Krystal, is this section on Afghanistan, where he talks about how he resisted, along with the Army Chief of Staff and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, withdrawing troops from Afghanistan and pushing a, quote, conditions-based approach. And the headline of this article and the way that the media was celebrating it is Mark Esper being like, I'm not a yes man. See, I didn't say yes to President Trump. First of all, your job as a Secretary of Defense and our chairman of the Joint Chiefs is to take orders and say yes to the duly elected Commander-in-Chief, but they get to brag about it and get celebrated as not being yes men whenever they were defying orders to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. It's incredible, and it's all right out in the open. He's out there, former Raytheon executive, being like, yeah, I stood up to President Trump.
Lobbyist, thank you very
Raytheon lobbyist, sorry. He's like, I stood up to President Trump. I didn't bring those troops home from Afghanistan, which means he's going to make a lot of money now that he's out of this. Dude. It's just, it's incredible that you get to brag about it.
This is one of those stories that's very confusing for, well, it's actually not confusing for me, but it is confusing for a lot of people because they're like, okay, Trump is bad, and he fired this guy.
Yes, so
this
he must be a hero.
Right, exactly. And this guy said something critical of Trump, ergo he must be a hero. But they never dig into like, okay, first of all, just because he's somewhat oppositional to Trump does not make him your friend, which is one of the greatest errors of the entire Trump era of everybody from, you know, the Bush era neocons, the Lincoln Project people, all the national security state apparatchiks that have become resistance heroes, Michael Avenatti, I mean, the list goes on, of people that should not be celebrated just simply for the fact that they're willing to speak critically of Trump. But, I mean, come on, this guy is a Raytheon lobbyist. I'd love to go back and see what the same people were saying when he was actually hired and put into that position. I'm sure they trashed him, and that was actually the right position to trash him. Was the right move. And then on Trump's part, like, I wish that this firing of Esper was some sort of principled stand on Afghanistan. Of course it's not. Of course it's some like petty interpersonal beef.
I'll take it. I don't even care.
Because that's what, you know, that's how he operates. I think, you know, the best reporting and indications I've seen is that Esper was critical of Trump's approach to the protests, sending the National Guard and threatening to use the Insurrection Act. I'm with Esper on that one. But the reporting is that, you know, that was where the sort of animosity and beef came from. And then the way that they frame this too is they frame it in this like norms and guardrails thing. The reporting that I read was like, oh, typically, presidents don't do this in the lame duck session when you have a new person coming in and it's like, okay, whatever, you know, okay, I'm not like outraged that the president has gotten rid of some of the national security state apparatchiks. He's also apparently threatening to fire Wray, who's the head of the FBI, who was like a George W. Bush administration person, who now liberals are like, oh, he's great.
He's a hero.
We have to keep him. We have to save his job.
It drives me nuts on this. It's like you can admit out in the open, in print, that you're defying orders to bring home troops from Afghanistan, and you get celebrated as a yes man in Washington, and you'll probably do even better in your next job and in your career. Yeah, I sarcastically tweeted this yesterday. But I mean, it drives me crazy. It really does. And he's going to walk around like a hero, and the media's celebrating him. He's not a yes man and all that. I wish he'd been a damn yes man. He should have been a yes man. That's his job.
Well, I wish that the people who criticized Trump had a reasonable criticism of him. That's the thing, is like, how many of these people who have left, what's the dude's name, Miles Taylor?
Yes, Miles Taylor.
Who ended up being the anonymous author. That was his big criticism, was that Trump was spending too much money and that he wanted to get out of Afghanistan. They pick the worst possible criticism. It's like the few areas where I'm actually sort of in agreement with Trump. I'm like, that's really the place where you had the strongest objections. John Bolton, same thing. It recurs again and again and again, and is always sort of hilarious when it happens.
Love the media. All right.
Tomorrow on Rising, another great show. Contributing editor to Jacobin, Matt Karp is going to join us. Also contributing editor to Current Affairs, former National Press Secretary for the Sanders campaign and co-host of the Bad Faith podcast, Brianna Joy Gray, is going to be back in the house. Also, our old friend, Daily Caller's Capitol Hill reporter, Henry Rogers, will be here as well.
You find me a lineup like that anywhere else. All right. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. Don't forget to like and share as well. And we'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Have a great day, guys.